We now come on to the urgent question on digital ID. Mike Wood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ask the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster if he will make a statement on mandatory digital ID.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Following my appointment as a joint minister across the Cabinet Office and the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, I'd like to respond to members' concerns about the digital ID policy. The programme has two core objectives. First, to transform the state and make it work better for ordinary working people. Too often, accessing public services is harder than it should be. Digital ID will change this, providing the foundation of how we transform public services for everyone. The new digital ID will be a modern, secure and trusted way for people to prove who they are and to access services across both the public and the private sector. It will be inclusive. We will issue the new digital ID to everyone who wants one and has the right to be in the UK, including the around 10% of UK citizens without traditional forms of ID. This will be transformational for how they access services too. And it will unlock government services that work better for people, saving people time, hassle and money. It will reduce fraud and enabling new possibilities for integrated services and make interacting with government easier for everyone. That is why, by the end of this Parliament, we will design and roll out a digital credential to every eligible UK citizen who wants one. One that is easy to use and unlocks improved public services. Second, we are committed to reducing illegal migration and will be mandating that right-to-work checks are conducted digitally. Currently, employers can carry out checks of over a dozen different forms of ID. And for British and Irish citizens, many of these checks are currently paper-based. This is confusing, vulnerable to fraud, and it doesn't always create a clear record of when and where checks have been carried out. As the Prime Minister clearly said yesterday, there will be checks, they will be digital, and they will be mandatory. Those seeking to work illegally in the United Kingdom will no longer be able to provide fraudulent papers. Information obtained from digital right-to-work checks will be available to help crack down on unscrupulous employers who are undercutting British workers and hiring people without legal right to work. This is about fairness, ensuring only those with a genuine right to work in the United Kingdom are able to work in the United Kingdom. We will be consulting imminently in a range of ways on how we design this scheme, and we want to hear from people, businesses and stakeholder groups across the United Kingdom on an approach that works for them. A new digital ID will put power back in people's hands, helping to make services more personal, joined up and effective, and ensuring everyone can access the support they need when they need it. And it will be...
I assume the Minister is about to come to a conclusion. He's overrun his 3 minutes. Very quickly.
I'm proud this Labour government is building this vital public infrastructure to make government work better for everyone.
Thank you. He read that beautifully with a straight face. Because in September, the Prime Minister tossed this mandatory digital ID onto the table as a classic dead cat distraction, purely to keep Andy Burnham off the front pages going into Labour conference. And now it's left to the junior minister to come here to explain why the policy that he spent months saying was absolutely vital is now being hollowed out. Now, I do congratulate him on his new appointment last Friday. I suspect that he's quickly learning that the price of his red box is to have to go out on a very thin limb, put his own credibility on the line, only for those higher up in government to rev the chainsaw, leaving him exposed with only the flimsiest of pretences to protect his dignity. The pretence that this policy is still a going concern. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, in less than 4 months, it's gone from dead cat to dead parrot. And like Monty Python's pet shop owner, the Minister is asking us all to deny what we can see clearly with our own eyes. He does everything short of inviting us to admire its beautiful plumage. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, this policy has passed on. So my questions for the Minister are, does the Government still expect digital ID in this new form to cost £1.8 billion? Is it going to be mandatory or not? And what on earth does the taxpayer get for that money if you don't even have to have it? But above all, when is he going to finally face facts, stop spending billions on this zombie boondoggle that's wandering aimlessly in search of a problem to solve, and save the taxpayers' money? Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a dead policy.
Someone's had their Weetabix. Minister Simons.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, let me answer the honourable gentleman by stepping back for a moment and stating clearly what British citizens and taxpayers will get. Digital IDs will be rolled out free to everyone who wants one. If anyone does not want one, they do not have to have one. People will be able to use that credential to prove their right to work digitally by the end of this Parliament, which will make it easier for businesses to check right to work and enable tougher enforcement against illegal working. We will harness the potential of this credential to deliver a transformation in digital government and public services. I, for one, am tired of constituents frustrated by basic problems that we should have fixed decades ago. A lack of joined-up government, a lack of control over their public services in their fingertips. This is free, voluntary, digital infrastructure, a foundation for public service improvement and private sector innovation, which we should have built years ago, as the honourable gentleman's predecessors in the last Conservative government recognised. But of course we didn't, because as the British people know very well and passed judgment at the last election, the Conservatives gave up governing this country properly. They gave up on reforming the state, and they gave up on making government work better for ordinary people. This government will not.
Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome my honourable friends, the right honourable gentleman's explanation at the dispatch box about the change. We've been here before and issued identity cards, as they were when the technology was much older, so I welcome the new approach. We already do tax, we already do renewal of driving licences and many other things with government online, proving who we are. But can I say to the honourable gentleman, could he confirm three things? For me to make this work, it must not be mandatory, it must not be a requirement to access a public service, and for those who choose not to or are not able to have one, including some of the 10% that he mentioned, there need to be really clear and established workarounds so that they do not see a diminished service.
Well, can I thank the honourable lady for her constructive questions. On each of those three questions, first, the digital ID will be free for everyone who wants one. Second, it will not be a conditional basis for access to public services. The Prime Minister has been very clear on that, and I can underscore that commitment. And third, it will be rolled out involving one of the largest digital inclusion programmes that the UK government has ever done.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Bobby Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Another day, another U-turn. Have you ever seen a new government, so lacking in conviction? When they announced their plan for change, I don't think anybody in this place realised it was a plan to change every single one of their own policies. This is becoming a shambles. The Liberal Democrats lack no such conviction on this issue. We have been opposed to ID cards for over 20 years. Will the Minister confirm, because he said repeatedly this is going to save people money, but it's a multi-billion-pound project? Taxpayers' money is being spent on this. How much has been spent on it so far, and how much does the government intend to spend on this scheme?
As I've mentioned before to the honourable gentleman and in this House, the design and the delivery of this scheme will be subject to the consultation that we are launching in a few weeks, and choices will be made about that scheme in that consultation. After those choices are made, we will have much more detailed costings available to this House. But the crucial thing is this: nations that have already developed digital ID programmes all over the world have realised massive, significant and quantified savings. So let me give you an example. India's digital ID programme has saved an estimated $10 billion per year by ensuring that public resources are accurately targeted at those who are eligible to receive them. That is what this government will be doing too.
Collinge.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Minister for his statement, and it's really interesting to see the benches opposite. I think obviously never have to wrestle with interactions with the state. Perhaps they have people to do it for them. The Minister will remember that back in October, I asked the Secretary of State to consider making every single element of this digital credential voluntary. So I'm very glad to see the government's position now. I'm excited about the potential benefits of this for interacting with the state. Could the Minister outline for my constituents some examples of how it could make their lives easier?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for her question and to confirm the digital ID will be free. It will be available to every eligible UK citizen who wants one. The consultation is going to ask people all over the country and invite them to tell us how it could be useful for them, to tell us where they face daily struggles. We have a range of use cases available to us. Every time there is an information boundary problem, every time public services are not properly joined up, every time that citizens of this country are frustrated by having to chase government departments to share information properly, a digital credential free for everyone will help to solve that problem in the decades ahead.
Roy Morrissey.
Deputy Speaker, may I congratulate the Minister on his new position, or poison chalice, whatever the case may be. And given that the government has now realised mandatory ID cards were never going to stop small boat crossings as they claimed, can the Minister confirm when the Prime Minister will complete his U-turn and abandon this pointless and costly project that the British people do not want?
Digital ID cards will be rolled out by the end of this Parliament, free to everyone who wants one. The Prime Minister was very clear that this is a basis for transforming public services, joining up government and making government work better. That is exactly what we are about, building public services that ordinary working people benefit from, and that is what this programme will help us to do.
Madam Deputy Speaker, young people in my constituency have long wanted some form of digital ID to make sure that they can prove their age. So they can prove their age when it comes to a club, a pub or a shop, so it makes their life a lot easier. They're used to using a smartphone. However, I am delighted that the government has made clear that this is going to be voluntary and it's not going to be mandatory. Many young people, many older people, however, in my constituency don't have a smartphone. A significant number of them would need to know what the government's plans are to make sure they don't lose out from this plan.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend and fellow Greater Manchester MP. My constituents too want to make accessing public services easier. They are fed up with having to fight a system that should be working harder for them, and that is what this scheme is about, making government work better for ordinary people. I can confirm that the rollout of the digital ID will involve one of the largest digital inclusion drives ever. We are not going to accept the status quo in which millions of people in this country are digitally excluded and ID excluded, and we will be making sure that we go to physical spaces like public libraries and post offices so that everyone can access the benefits of this scheme if they want to.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister may or may not be aware, but there is already a thing called gov.uk, and just last night I was delighted that on my phone the ID check beautifully took a copy of my face and digitally connected. How will the new voluntary dead parrot digital ID scheme differ from what already exists, and how will it also supersede the wonderful thing called national insurance numbers?
Well, I'm delighted that the honourable member was so pleased with gov.uk. I'm sure he'll be equally as delighted when we roll out the simple, easy-to-use and effective digital ID that will help him access a whole range of public services through gov.uk, which he cannot currently access. And in the coming weeks, we will show him more about how he might be able to do that, and I'm sure he will be thrilled.
Context of increasing surveillance, DWP powers to snoop on bank accounts, removal of trials by jury, postponing elections and clamping down on peaceful protest, the public are starting to become very angry about these encroachments on our fundamental freedoms and creeping state control. It is all inherently un-British. Now, I know this isn't my honourable friend's fault, but can he please convey for me to whoever is behind this farce that they are doing this government no favours at all, and it is time to scrap this costly project altogether.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for her question? I too believe in freedom, and any good digital system must be trusted. If it is not trusted, it doesn't work, and that will be at the heart of the consultation that we will publish in a few weeks. The system that we build will give citizens more control and information about how their data is used and who accesses it than they currently have now. It will be decentralised with strong firewalls between data sets so that there is no central data storage beyond data government already holds, and it will hold the minimum possible data needed to serve ordinary people better.
Dewhirst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, I have to congratulate the Minister on doing an excellent job as a human shield for the Prime Minister. He says that, that this scheme will bring down the numbers of people crossing the channel on boats. Clearly that's a farce. And you've just said that you will be able to access...
He's just said.
Be seated, just for... I'm standing, you should be seated. I haven't just said. Continue, Charlie.
Speaker. Now, the Minister has just said that we will be able to access certain things that we cannot currently access once he has rolled out this digital ID scheme. Can he list exactly what services we will be able to access?
The Parrots. Let me just restate the argument for him that connects digital ID to small boat crossings. We are toughening up our enforcement against illegal working using digital right-to-work checks. What that enables is an audit of where those checks have happened so that we can toughen up our enforcement. That brings this country in line with international peers like France and Germany to reduce the pull factors. The use cases that we deploy this system and that we join up government around will be subject to the consultation. So I would invite my honourable friend to submit to the consultation to tell us where exactly it can be useful. But let me give one example. When you have a baby, you have to apply for childcare repeatedly and remind the government what it's doing. It already knows that information. You shouldn't have to do that. Tired, working parents should not have to fight the government to get things that they are entitled. We will make sure they don't.
Jim McMahon.
Thank you. I welcome this revision to the government's policy on the mandatory element of this, and I do think there is some benefit in looking at more advanced public services that are digital. That isn't the same, though, as ID. When we came to government, the Prime Minister gave a speech on Downing Street and he promised two things. The first one was to tread lightly on people's lives, and the second one was to be a government of service. And on a range of issues, whether it's checking bank accounts, seeing what people are selling on eBay or Etsy, or a range of other things, the government is appearing that it is intruding on people's everyday lives in a way that is overbearing. And so can I just ask for this to be a moment where we go back to the Prime Minister's founding principles when we came to government and make sure that cuts across all government policy.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend, and I agree that it's vital people trust any digital product and system that this government builds. Trust has to be at the heart of everything we do. And in the consultation that will be published in a few weeks, we will put trust at the centre of it and explain more about how we are going to do that. But just to be really clear, the reason why the digital ID connects public services is at the moment there's no mechanism for the government to join up public services based on what an individual wants. If somebody wants to share information across government services to get something, for instance, their childcare, they should be able to do that with their consent. That is what this digital ID will unlock.
Michael.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm struggling to get too excited about the change from mandatory to voluntary, because we all know that a voluntary scheme is just a mandatory scheme for slow learners, which is possibly what commends it to the government. The Minister has said, though, that he can't yet tell us the cost because he hasn't done the design work. But it's a matter of record that the government has had a right round asking departments to offer up savings to pay for this. Would it not have made sense to do the design work, have a budget, and then ask for the savings?
Well, I, for one, want to hear from people before key digital products are designed. Good product design is based on what's useful for people, and that's why we will be having a major consultation where we get out across the country, engage with people, get them engaging with digital government so that we can learn exactly how to build this system in a way that is trusted, useful and secure, and that's what we will be doing in the coming weeks.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Given that we're all employers, I'm slightly surprised that some people think that all you need to do to employ someone is know their national insurance number. That seems a little bit odd to me. But I've been there checking people to onboard them as a relatively new member of staff, having to check someone's passport. I don't really know what a fake passport looks like or a tampered passport. And also asking people whose families have lived in this country for many generations for their passport and seeing them feeling insulted and undervalued. So I do welcome this is moving online. I welcome the Minister's commitment to outlining the cost of this in due course. But I would also, when he does this, will he also outline the benefits, both in terms of value and also slicker government services to our residents?
We absolutely will be outlining those benefits, and I would just underscore that countries all over the world have introduced a digital ID scheme to join up public services better. In India, that has saved an estimated $10 billion every single year. That is savings that this country deserves and wants, and that's what we will deliver.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. One of the reasons for the massive public opposition to mandatory ID is that it is seen to be an infringement of civil liberties and individual freedom. So can I ask the Minister if he will give an assurance that the digital ID database will not be made available to the police for the use of live facial recognition?
The digital ID database will be based on the principle of data minimisation. The minimum possible data will be stored about every individual citizen that government already has to do what we need to do, which is join up public services better.
Chris Hinchliffe.
Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased that the government have dropped the plans for mandatory digital ID. It was always clear that the British public would heavily reject this idea. It is our duty on these benches to jealously guard our constituents' civil liberties. So will the Minister convey the lessons learned from this decision to his colleagues across government and persuade them to drop proposals for eroding the right to a jury trial and restricting the right to protest against animal testing?
I will feed back those comments to the relative Secretary of State.
Dr Neil Shastrihurst.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And many of my constituents will be watching proceedings agog because it's just another example of the chaotic approach to policy making by this government. Given the contentious nature of this issue, why didn't the government consult before announcing the proposals, and why didn't they consult before making a reversal on the policy in the next instance?
Well, we announced the intention to roll out digital ID cards, and I've clarified today that those will be free for anyone who wants one, and we're going to consult on how to make that maximally useful for every British person who wants a government that works better for them, and that is what we will do.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I agree with the Minister that where we can digitise processes, they can release huge savings to the public purse. He cited India's £10 billion a year, but now that the government is moving from a mandatory process to a voluntary process on the right to work, and everything was voluntary beforehand, does the department have any modelling that it can share, and he can announce today perhaps, on what that voluntary uptake needs to be in order to release the savings he cited against the projected cost of the service that he's putting together? And he also says that whilst there won't be a mandatory element on digital ID for right to work checks, there will be a new digital right to work check. Is he able to say more about what that will be? And is that system going to be developed alongside the digital ID system, or is that going to be a system that will be developed after the digital ID when he's aware of what the size of that market might be to be filled?
Minister.
The honourable friend for what I think were three questions, which I will try to answer all of them. Our job in building this voluntary scheme that people can get an ID if they want one is to make it useful and effective. That's on us to figure out how to do that, and that's what we're going to be doing. The consultation will have more information about the modelling that he is after, and that will be published in the coming weeks. And once we've made the design choices about how to make the system maximally useful for people, there will then be further costs published to this House. And on the third question, the digital right to work checking system will be developed alongside the digital ID programme.
Anne Davies.
Madam Dirprwy Llefarydd, I feel for colleagues on the other side of the House forced to defend U-turn after U-turn for your own Prime Minister's policies. Ministers were reportedly told to find savings in their departments to fund the £1.8 billion scheme. So will the Minister now confirm that with the scheme no longer mandatory, that departments will no longer have to make these cuts and public services will be ring-fenced?
The digital ID scheme will be funded within existing settlements, and conversations about that are ongoing.
Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank the Minister for coming here today and talking to us about the revised policy. Well, OK, I apologise, but you're here today and you've given us the revised policy, OK? Of which I'm delighted about. I am so pleased that the Minister and Government have decided to make it a mandatory scheme. The number of complaints I've had in my constituency has been something I cannot absolutely, it's been overwhelming. So going forward, in areas like mine that are it's got a very high digital exclusioncy, could the Minister assure me that they will ensure that they bring constituents, residents along with them in this consultation phase so that people do not feel that they have been left behind and then start to object because they feel it will go from voluntary back to mandatory? Thank you.
Minister.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend, and I can assure her that the consultation will involve going right across the country to the places where people live, to listen, to engage, and to build a consensus around the design of this scheme. I should also underscore that the status quo at the moment is that we are not making enough effort to reach people who are digitally excluded and who are ID excluded. This programme will involve one of the biggest digital inclusion drives in the history of the government to reach those people so that they can access services. And I, for one, am proud of that.
Christine Jardine.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I had expected to come here today. I wanted to come here today and say I was delighted to hear that this scheme is no longer going to be mandatory, it will be voluntary. But frankly, I'm just completely confused by the farce that we've got here today. It will not be free because we know it's going to cost the taxpayer, so I don't think we should be saying it's free. And we're told it's now going to be voluntary, but the Prime Minister said at PMQs that we will have a digital scheme which will be mandatory. And can I just point out that no constituent has ever come to me and said, our public services are poor quality, it would be so much better if we had a mandatory digital scheme that would improve them. But can the Minister please make it clear? The Prime Minister says digital checks will be mandatory. So while the digital scheme might be voluntary, if the checks are mandatory, is that not just a mandatory scheme by the back door?
Yes. Minister.
I think I understood the honourable member's question, but let me have a crack at answering it. Just to go to the second part of her question first, if I may. The constituents who email, who are going to find this scheme useful, what they are asking for is more joined-up public services. They're asking not to have to fight the government to get things that they are entitled to, and that is what this scheme will deliver. On her first question, there is a distinction between digitising the right-to-work check so that we can toughen up illegal labour market enforcement, which is what the Prime Minister underscored yesterday, and the digital ID, which will be free and voluntary for anyone who wants it.
Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As someone who supports modernising and digitising the state, but who spoke against mandatory digital ID, can I welcome the Minister's sensible approach and his engagement over recent months? My constituents are really concerned about illegal working. Does he agree with me that the current largely paper-based system of right-to-work checks is totally unfit for purpose and open to fraud? And will he outline how this scheme will help crack down on illegal working in a way that the party opposite totally failed to do over 14 years in power?
Minister.
Well, I can wholeheartedly agree with my honourable friend who's been a powerful advocate on this issue. The purposes of this scheme are twofold. First, digitising right-to-work checks will help us toughen up illegal labour market enforcement, making it easier for businesses to check right to work and for individuals to prove their right to work. And second, and fundamentally, this is about the future of digital government. It's about making our government work better for ordinary people. And the digital ID scheme is a foundational piece of infrastructure that will help us do that in the decades ahead. And we, on this side, have a long history of building public goods and public infrastructure, and I'm proud that we're doing that for the future.
Alicia Cairns.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. This government seems intent on fundamentally changing the relationship between the state and its citizens without our consent, from jury trials to digital ID. At first, whilst there was some relief, I do fear once introduced, Labour government will move to make this mandatory at a later stage or surreptitiously make it mandatory. Can I gently point out to the Minister there is no such thing as free. Taxpayers are already paying for this policy, and indeed they're also paying for a new minister on it. So can the Minister please confirm that no foreign companies, particularly Chinese companies, will have any access to our data? This will be British companies delivering a so-called digital card for British people. And when will his constituents and mine have a chance to have a say and tell the British government they don't want this?
Well, I can confirm three things in answer to the different elements of her question. First, she mentions consent. The system itself will be based on consent. It will ask people for their consent in how their data is shared and used, and she will see more about that in the coming weeks. Second, there will be strong safeguards on how data is used and the future implementation of the scheme in the legislation that we will bring forward. And third, she may know that I believe strongly in sovereignty in this country. British sovereignty will be at the heart of the scheme. British tech companies will be supported by it, so foreign companies will not be subject to procurement in the usual way.
Emma Foodie.
You, Madam Deputy Speaker. Nail bars, car washers, barbers, all business types that are known for higher than average numbers of illegal working and where right-to-work checks are variable. Now, the 83% increase in illegal working arrests that were announced this week are welcome, but can the Minister please outline how digital ID and right-to-work checks will make these checks more robust?
Digitising right-to-work checks means two things. First, it's easier for businesses and for citizens to check and prove their right to work, adding simplicity in the system, taking away the paper-based documents that often can open the way for fraud. And secondly, and crucially, it will allow a record of those businesses that have conducted checks. That's the basis of tougher enforcement, which is the ultimate goal. Tougher enforcement against those who are hiring people illegally, undermining British workers and producing a pull factor that keeps illegal migration coming. That is what we're committed to solving, and that is why digitising right-to-work checks matters.
Andrew Rossingdale.
So, Madam Deputy Speaker, this has been a costly shambles, and my constituents see it as an attack on their fundamental freedoms and privacy. So I'm glad the government have done another U-turn, but will the Minister guarantee that this so-called voluntary scheme is not suddenly going to turn into a mandatory scheme at a later date? Will he absolutely guarantee the British people this is not going to be happening in the future?
Minister.
Well, as I said to his honourable friend earlier, there will be strong safeguards in the legislation about how the scheme is used over time that he will be able to scrutinise, and he should feed in thoughts about how that legislation should be structured to the consultation, which will open in a few weeks.
Brian Leishman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, when we look at the popular things that this Labour government has done since coming to power, and I'm talking about raising the minimum wage, raising the living wage, abolishing the two-child cap, these are decisions rooted in Labour Party values. Eroding civil liberties such as the jury trials proposal and digital ID is not in keeping with Labour Party values, nor is it necessary or indeed popular. Will the Minister feed back to leadership at Cabinet level my thoughts?
Minister.
Of course.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituents are opposed to digital ID, and I welcome the Minister's U-turn. I look forward to him being given responsibility for jury trials as well. But the problem is that digital ID will not have any effect on illegal working or illegal migration, because employers that ignore the system at the moment will continue to ignore the new system. And the real problem is that the government is not deporting those illegal migrants that they catch.
Minister.
The digital ID scheme and toughening up illegal labour market enforcement is one of a suite of measures that this government is delivering to crack down on illegal migration. Other measures, for example, include extending right-to-work checks to cover businesses hiring in the gig economy and zero-hours workers like construction, food delivery, beauty salons and so on. This is all about reducing incentives for illegal migration, and it will change irregular migrants' perceptions of the toughness of the UK labour market enforcement regime, something that his party failed to do for 14 years.
Joe Platt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Minister for his announcement regarding the changes to digital ID. And as he will know, as a neighbouring MP, I recently held a public meeting in Leon Atherton where there was overwhelming agreement that this should not be mandatory, so a decision that will be welcomed by many. However, can he set out how the wider digitisation of public services will benefit the people in Leon Atherton, in particular in streamlining support for parents of children with SCND?
Minister.
Well, can I commend my honourable friend for the public meeting she held, which my constituents reported back was a robust but constructive conversation, as she knows they always are in Wigan. I can. So when you have a baby, you should be able to access the childcare you need without having to tell the government repeatedly the same information that it already knows about you. When you tell people, our constituents, that that doesn't already happen, they think it probably already should happen. And that's what we're going to make sure does happen, so that people are saved time, money and hassle.
Robbie Moore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We know that the Prime Minister was warned many, many times that voters would not believe the claim that introducing mandatory digital ID was about stopping illegal immigration, but then decided to push on regardless. So does the Minister think that it was credible to argue that 67 million people, law-abiding citizens who already have passports, national insurance numbers and driving licences, should be placed into a brand new compulsory database in order to stop illegal immigration? Or does he accept that this is just another example of the Prime Minister treating the public as fools?
Minister.
Well, about 25% of UK citizens do not have a passport, and 15% of people have never had a passport. And there are millions of people right across this country who are currently digitally excluded. That affects their capacity to access vital services in the public sector and the private sector. I want those people to be part of our public services and our economy, just like everyone else, and we will make every effort to reach them.
Josh Newbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents in Cannock Chase are sick to the back teeth of people getting away with working illegally when they are playing by the rules. The previous government, despite the incredible hindsight they now seem to have about their time in office, utterly failed to put in place a robust system of right-to-work checks, which is a gift to rogue employers and criminal gangs. Would the Minister agree with me that it's high time we bring in digital right-to-work checks to crack down on the scourge of illegal working that the party opposite left to fester?
Minister.
I wholeheartedly agree. Toughening up our illegal labour market enforcement regime and using digital right-to-work checks to do that is a vital part of delivering this government's central priority to crack down on illegal migration.
Blake Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. When the Prime Minister first announced digital ID, it was to stop illegal working, and it took most of us about a minute to work out that was total nonsense. Flapping in the wind, the government is now desperately trying to sell the benefits of limiting liberty and freedom for all of our constituents. But one thing the government has failed to tell us is how much this is going to cost. Nothing in life is free. There is a cost to this. Does the government dispute the £1.8 billion estimate that's been provided by the OBR?
Well, the honourable member opposite talks about flapping in the wind. He might have noticed that one person at the moment will be flapping in the wind. That is the Shadow Justice Secretary, who I believe has just been sacked by the Leader of the Opposition for secret plots to defect to the party opposite. I wonder if he wants to ask him if he's flapping in the wind.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Constituents who write to me about their battles with government departments overwhelmingly complain about delays, such as the typical 15-week wait for mandatory reconsideration. In response to my right honourable friend, the member for Orkney and Shetland, the Minister spoke of talking to people first. Does he not think that if the government really believed in this, he wouldn't be standing there defending their 13th U-turn?
Yeah. Talking and listening to people is what I believe in, and that is why we will be launching a major public consultation where we are out across the country talking to people about their frustrations with public services that this party left to rot for 14 years, and we will build the public goods and the digital infrastructure we need to fix them.
Nick Timothy. Anymore? Sorry, Ben Jobsiak. Ben.
We both haven't got any hair, Madam Speaker.
The Minister talks about the mandatory right-to-work checks. He talks about that in a way that implies that it is always the worker that is the bad faith actor in that relationship. Could you explain how those mandatory right-to-work checks will be used to check the actual employers themselves, who often are the guilty party in terms of employing people illegally? And also, could he outline what other agencies will have access to this database in a passive way, i.e. without having been asked to prove an individual's ID, who will have access to that to work out what's going on?
Minister.
There was quite a lot in his question. I will do my level best to answer it. Digital right-to-work checks will make it easier for those who have a digital ID to check, to prove their right to work, and crucially it will make it easier for employers to check people's right to work, and that will benefit our economy. When you do a digital right-to-work check, it creates a record, and that's a key piece of information that this government will use alongside the other ways that we are toughening up our illegal working regime to make sure that we are enforcing against employers who are undercutting British workers by hiring people illegally.
John Lamont.
Oh, thank you very much. We don't want digital ID. It's going to cost billions of pounds and it should be scrapped completely. Now, despite what the Minister has said, I'm concerned that digital ID will not be technically compulsory, but people will be blocked from accessing services if they don't have it. Now, in response to other questions about this, the Minister alluded to childcare. Can the Minister confirm whether accessing childcare will be dependent on having a digital ID card?
Well, I think he was lost for a moment there as he was contemplating the implosion of his shadow cabinet once again, which I can wholly understand. Details of how this scheme will be used will be made after the consultation, and I would invite him to tell us in the consultation how he thinks it could be useful for him to access childcare if he so needs and chooses.
Sarah Perching.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does the Minister accept that announcing mandatory digital ID only to then retreat to voluntary digital ID has merely created an expensive, chaotic shambles? And will he rule out unequivocally that this retreat is not a Trojan horse for compulsory digital ID being imposed on the public at a later date, yes or no?
Minister.
Well, I'm glad the honourable member opposite is smiling about the potential new colleague that she may have obtained in the coming days. We on these benches have a proud history of building public goods that help us to serve people better. The NHS, social housing, the welfare state. This piece of digital infrastructure will serve working people across this country for decades to come and make government work better for them. And I am proud that we are building digital public goods.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister has been consistent in his defence of the indefensible this morning, but he's equally been consistent in avoiding putting a price on this. He didn't answer the question from my honourable friend about whether he disputed the £1.8 billion estimate from the OPR, and if he won't give an overall ballpark cost of what the Treasury has sanctioned for this scheme, will he at least tell us what the consultation he is hiding behind will cost?
Minister.
You'll see more details in a very few weeks in the consultation about the costings. And to be very clear, no, I do not recognise the figures. This government does not recognise the figures in the OBR's estimate because the crucial design choices about how to make the scheme work for ordinary people will be made after we have talked to the public and there is a consultation.
And the final question, Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Minister, hopefully there will be easier questions for you to answer in the time to come, but this is an issue that's very, very important to my constituency. I get hundreds of emails about this issue, but the response to the proposal of digital ID was swift and intense, and the feelings on every side of the community have not diminished in any way. The general public seek assurance that their autonomy, insofar as it does not harm anyone else, is a foundational principle in our democracy. So how does government intend to rebuild the trust that quite clearly has been lost?
Minister.
Well, can I thank the honourable member for his question? Trust is vital. Digital tools only work when they are trusted by people. And in the consultation that we will publish in the coming weeks, trust will be at the heart of how we build the system for working people.
That concludes the urgent question. I'll just give a few moments for the front benches to swap over.